60 reasons in 60 days why Trump needs to go. Last year, Trump tweeted that Hurricane Dorian was going to hit Alabama, when in fact it wasn't, and his information was outdated. On another occasion, he referred to the CEO of Apple as Tim Apple instead of Tim Cook. Both of these are examples of very silly mistakes that are easily fixable. All he had to do was say, "my bad." But on both occasions, he just refused to admit he made a mistake. In leadership training, there's a concept called intellectual humility. Intellectual humility allows you to entertain the possibility that you may be wrong and be open to new experiences. Intellectually humble leaders will look for people who are smarter than they are to put them in charge of departments in which they are not experts. Intellectually humble leaders learn from their mistakes. We've seen Joe Biden make a lot of mistakes, and we've seen him grow and learn from them. Maya Angelou said, "Do the best you can until you learn better, and when you know better, you do better." Joe Biden has demonstrated that he can do better. Trump can't. Why Trump needs to go. A handful of years ago, we started getting these headlines about how if we don't reverse course on climate change, the damage will be irreversible. Now, that was a handful of years ago, and we've lost all of that time. He doesn't listen to scientists. He doesn't listen to experts. We need a president who listens to scientists and who listens to experts. And that's Joe Biden. It just is. That's why Trump needs to go. When Trump first started talking about draining the swamp in his rallies, he didn't actually know what it meant. He thought it was corny, but it got a big applause line, so he kept using it. Now, to be fair, there is no single definition, but it has generally to do with removing corruption. So did Trump remove corruption? No, of course not. He packed his administration with former lobbyists and corporate executives. Oh, and donors. Installed a former Boeing executive to run the Defense Department.
Former pharmaceutical lobbyist for Health and Human Services. A former coal lobbyist to run the EPA. A former oil lobbyist to run the Department of the Interior. A donor to head the Postal Service. A donor as his labor secretary. A donor to run his Small Business Administration. His unqualified children. A Mar-a-Lago member as the ambassador to South Africa.
It's just a handful of the 300 vacancies that he's filled with his friends and donors. Why does it matter? It matters because he didn't drain the swamp, he made it worse. It matters because he's a liar. The Hatch Act is a federal law passed in 1939 that limits certain political activities of federal employees, as well as some state, D.C., and local government employees who work in connection with federally funded programs. The law's purposes are to ensure that federal programs are administered in a nonpartisan fashion, to protect federal employees from political coercion in the workplace, and to ensure that federal employees are advanced based on merit and not their political affiliation. When you work in the White House and promote a politician or political party, you are violating the Hatch Act. And when you use a federal building for a partisan campaign rally, you are violating the Hatch Act. Donald Trump's staff, including his family, have violated the Hatch Act hundreds of times in the past 4 years. And only he can do anything about it, and he hasn't because he has no ethics and he does not care. This matters because we need an ethical president who understands that partisanship has no place on federal grounds, where your job is to serve all of the people without bias. That's why Trump needs to go. Racist goon edition. In this case, the racist goon isn't Trump himself, but a Republican operative named Thomas Hofeller, who put together that large populations often have a lot of immigrants, and immigrants might be uncomfortable answering a citizenship question on the census, especially in Trump's America. Why this matters is if you don't participate in the census, you do not get a truly representative government. It's basically a long game to create a new form of gerrymandering, where representatives pick their populations instead of the other way around. It's a way to maintain power through cheating. And while Trump wasn't the architect, he loved it and supported it all the way to the Supreme Court, where it lost. Trump needs to go because representatives should not be allowed to pick their voters. Why Trump needs to go. In Helsinki in 2018, when Donald Trump was asked about Russian interference in the 2016 election, Donald Trump publicly defended Vladimir Putin against our own intelligence. When this happened, Paul Ryan stated that the president must appreciate that Russia is not our ally. There is no moral equivalence between the United States and Russia, which remains hostile to our most basic values. Bob Corker said that Trump made us look like a pushover. And former CIA Director John Brennan said that Donald Trump's performance in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the level of high crimes and misdemeanors. I know that this is not a kitchen table topic. People aren't going to be voting based on this. But this is important because on the world stage, our reputation matters. And when our president supports a villain, it doesn't make any of us look all that good. Why Trump needs to go. When a senator dies, the rule is that the flag must be lowered on the day they die, for the day after, and then usually the president issues a proclamation stating that the flag will remain down until the funeral. When John McCain died, the flag was lowered as it needed to be, and Trump immediately raised it as soon as it was legally allowed. It was an outrage to veterans, the family, both parties of Congress, the general population, and his own staff. And it wasn't until his own staff pressured him to lower it back down that he reluctantly did. If you're wondering why this matters, it didn't break any laws, why does it really matter? It matters because the president should not be a small, petty, mean, vindictive, nasty little man. The president shouldn't be jealous of a dead veteran. We deserve better. So did John McCain. That's why Trump needs to go. Slightly hungover edition. This is going to be a two-parter. Remember in 2019, there were headlines going around saying that Trump wanted to buy Greenland? Was it real? Was it fake? Nobody quite knew. It was dumb and inconsequential, and we just moved on with our lives. As it turns out, according to Miles Taylor, it was true, but it's a lot grosser than that. He didn't just try to buy Greenland. He wanted to trade Greenland for Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico was, and I quote, dirty and full of poor people. I guess he forgot he's also the president of Puerto Rico. Part 2 coming tomorrow. Part 2. Last year in California, where I live, the Camp Fire burned down an entire American town. And Trump wanted to withhold aid to California because California didn't vote for him. Trump has also said pretty disgusting things about Baltimore, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Atlanta. Here's why that matters. When you are the president of the United States, you are not the president of the people who like you. You're not the president of the people who vote for you. You are the president to everybody. And we need a president who understands that and will act like it. Can you imagine Obama passing the Affordable Care Act for everyone but Arkansas? Are you kidding me? Why Trump needs to go. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has fought her entire life for women and gender equality. And if you think her legacy isn't going to be erased like that, then you don't understand who we are up against. She deserves better than to have her life's work erased. She deserves better than that. If you have to hold your nose, fucking hold it. Hold it for her. Especially if you're a woman. Because she would do it for you. Why Trump needs to go. In 2015, CNBC did like a survey of the best managers in America, and of course Trump had to win, so he had all of his employees take the survey, which on his face is actually not that weird. But when he refreshed the survey and saw that he was only 197, he called in Michael Cohen and was like, "Michael, fix it." And Michael's like, "Yes, sir, you're so handsome." So Michael Cohen found a shady IT guy who was willing to hack into the system and rig the votes by buying a bunch of anonymous IP addresses and flooding the system. He bumped Trump up to number 9, at which point Trump was like, "Oh, I'm in the top 10. He printed out the results and put them on his wall and started handing them out to hotel visitors. CNBC figured it out and they actually disqualified him, but not before Trump had already decided he earned that place. He's a cheating piece of shit. Please vote, because he's trying to cheat again.